And we're back. There was an election among Republicans to choose a new party chair. I thought I'd introduce you to him personally. Ryan Call, congratulations.
Thank you very much, John. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
And you're old enough to drink now, and I think that's really exciting as well.
I am. You know, I am one of the youngest state chairmen for the Republican Party in the nation. I think I may be among the lowest, the youngest three.
Wow.
There's a 31-year-old who's the chair of the Oklahoma Party.
Now, in fairness, the Democrats also had an election, I think the same night, to get their new party leader, and a guy named Rick
Palacio. And he was actually elected about a week before I was.
Palacio.
Palacio.
Good Italian. We invited him on. He didn't make it. I hope it's just a scheduling conflict.
I think it's Hispanic,
Rick, come
but
on.
that's okay.
Can I pretend it's Italian?
You can pretend it's Italian.
I need some brethren. All right, let's talk about your predecessor first.
Sure.
Following Dick Wadhams, who is a political legend, people love him, people despise him. People say he's the reason the Republicans failed to win the governor's office in the Senate last year. Some people say, oh, he's the genius that got rid of Thune and gave us Bill Owens and gave us Wayne Allard. Wayne Allard. And now some kid is taking his place. So how do you fill somebody like that?
Well, there are big shoes to fill. Certainly, Dick was an incredible political talent. Colorado Republicans, I think, have been very fortunate to have his talent on loan to us for the last 4 years. But like anyone in that kind of top leadership position, you get blamed for everything that goes wrong, and you get the credit for everything that goes right.
Somebody gave me an analogy, and it was with Dick Wadhams versus go back in time and compare Eisenhower and Patton. All right, Patton's job was on the ground to kill as many Krauts as possible and move the line farther, faster, and get to Berlin. That was his only thing he wanted to do. It doesn't matter who got in the way; he was going to go. Eisenhower had a bit more of a difficult job. He had to keep a coalition, an awful coalition together of Americans and French and English, and he had to keep everybody's temper okay and still keep the machinery going. That was an art compared to Patton. I've heard some people say, it might be Wadhams as well, that Wadhams is more of a Patton. You give him one candidate, one election, he'll see you through the primary, he'll get you elected, unless you say macaca, and then you're not going to get there. But maybe the party job is more for a guy who can bring more coalitions in. Is that a fair analogy?
I think that is a fair analogy, because my job as state party chairman is, first and foremost, my job is to help Republicans get elected to office. But it's also to help build and broaden our Republican coalition. And it is a coalition warfare sort of approach. And it's a challenge sometimes because
we're Republicans.
Because we're Republicans. Well, and one of our fundamental tenets is we believe in the individual. And we're made up as a party and as a coalition of a lot of very independent-minded, principled individuals. And so trying to get all of them to work together
so
is a challenge.
Diplomatic. That's wonderful.
That's the skill set I think this party chairman needs.
Let's bring it back to Caldara's political axiom number one.
Which I'm very familiar with.
There is nothing Republicans can't F up. You see, I didn't even say it this time, so they didn't have to go bleep it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And proved again and again and again, and last year was proof positive. And a lot of people say it was the party's fault that we imploded. Absolutely imploded on a gubernatorial race. And we lost on a Senate race that should have been a cakewalk for us. To give the numbers, the Republican advantage, just on the generic ballot, going into the governor's race was something near a 10-point advantage. You have to really work hard to lose that. But we did it, we Republicans.
Well, it is a challenge, and I think that the governor's race was a historical aberration. Who could have predicted that Josh Payne would have withdrawn so early, and McGinnis could have imploded, and a lot of the new activists that got involved would have flocked to a candidate who really was untested, and as a result,
it's not like they flocked to Mays. It was a selection of there was elimination. There was one guy left standing.
That's right.
For a lot of Republicans, they saw the old system of you're next, no, you're next, and the only other person they had was a complete unknown.
That underscores, I think, the long-term strategic and difficult challenges that we have as a party to always make sure we've got a good team of prospective candidates that are out there running a robust primary and a real vigorous selection process. That didn't happen this time around. I think you're right. And because of that, not only did we lose momentum from the governor's race, as a result, a lot of the resources that would have otherwise come into Colorado and been able to be raised and mobilized in Colorado financially to help our turnout operation that would have then benefited our candidate for Senate.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
Sure.
All right, so the governor's race, as soon as we imploded, I think about Dan Mays on that last day he had to pull his name off the ballot,
right,
and for the Republicans to choose anyone. Mm-hmm. My 8-year-old daughter could have won. I mean, well, she did a great job,
she
I gotta
might,
say.
exactly.
Yeah. But I wonder that, Dan Mays must have been the most employable individual in Colorado that night. I can only imagine the subtle, they can't be hard offers, but the subtle offers. And of course, you guys in the party wouldn't know anything about that, right?
The challenge with respect to candidate selection and opportunity, there's a real limit to what the party itself as a structure can do. I mean, we set up the caucuses and the assemblies, and we put the names before the voters of Colorado, the Republican primary electorate, and they make those choices. And so there isn't, formally an ability of the party to step in and take someone's nomination away. It was really up into the hands of Dan to make that decision.
And that night he was so employable, and the next day
he was not.
He was not.
So,
well, I mean, were there people offering him? I mean, can you confirm nor deny?
I cannot confirm or deny. And look, that I think historically is an aberration. I don't think we're going to see a breakdown like that in a race like for governor or a statewide campaign again.
Well, I mean, fortunately, it's not like it happened at a crucial time in Colorado's history where we had amazing budgetary and redistricting issues going on, or nominations to the Colorado Supreme Court. So if there was ever a time to screw up, 2010 was that time.
And my job moving forward is to make sure that sort of stuff doesn't happen again. Not that we have the ability to control the process. In fact, it's precisely because we want to empower our local activists and the voters with those decisions that we need to make sure that we're promoting good options for them.
Let's talk a little bit about the Senate side.
Sure.
Talk about another easy win for us. I mean, this was the #1 targeted seat in the nation. Am I wrong?
Maybe not but certainly within the top at half a dozen or fewer.
And here we had Bennett, who everybody respects as an intellectual guy, but he never ran for dog catcher. He's never been in a race, and he had that inability to connect with voters. When you saw him on the stump, when you saw him in the crowd, he looked just like he was, an Ivy League elitist, and he couldn't quite campaign.
Well, and if you remember, even the Democrats had a very divisive internal primary battle between Romanoff and Bennett for that nomination. And those fissures and those divisions are going to continue with the Democratic Party, for I think quite some time.
But how is it that we lost that race when we had this incredible Republican edge? Every other statewide Republican seat we won. Treasurer, Secretary of State, AG, we won those. But we couldn't win the big ones.
I think we had two excellent candidates. Both Jane Norton, obviously former lieutenant governor, would have been able to appeal to a broad cross-section of voters in Colorado. And Ken Buck, a great principled conservative, has done great work up.
Was it a mistake to vote for Buck in the primary? In retrospect, would you have urged something different?
Do I think that Jane Norton may have been able to appeal to women voters that really made the deciding outcome in this particular race better? Probably. Because what they did is they put Ken Buck in a box with respect to the issues of women's choice and issues that appealed to suburban women. Now, had Jane Norton been the candidate, I'm sure they would have found something to call her, on the basis of being too extreme for Colorado. That's the same line they've used against Republicans and conservatives for years and years. It's an old canard, but our challenge is that we just didn't have the resources to be able to effectively counter the millions of dollars that was flowing in from out of state to paint Ken Buck as an extreme candidate, which he wasn't.
As that Eisenhower of the party, having to get all these different coalitions together under one head, One is, I think, growing in strength, and they're headed for a big fight, and those are gay Republicans. The homosexual movement inside the Republican Party has always been pretty tepid. We had the log cabin Republicans, so that Republicans can say, look, we're inclusive. Now there's a new group called Go Proud, which is GOP proud nationally, but there seems to be more momentum of Republican homosexuals, and there are a lot of folks in the party not too sure what to do with this.
Well, we've always had, gay Republicans that have been important members of our coalition. They're good conservatives. They care about businesses. I mean, they've just like any other Republican or voter, they've got different things. And that's one thing that's interesting that we have to remember is that within our Republican coalition, we don't require unanimity on everything. To be a part of the Republican coalition doesn't mean that you have to agree with me or with you on everything.
That's a problem because apparently Republicans don't agree on spending too much either. Oh, look at that. Look, that was good. We should get a replay of that one.
The reality is that many Republicans, and I'm the first to admit it, Republican elected officials have not always lived up to the core principles of limited spending.
Then what is it? If there's room for pro-life and pro-choice, if there's room for pro-gay and anti-civil union folks, and there's room for people who want to spend and debt spend, and there are those of us who say that's fiscal insanity. All right, boil it down. You don't want to say there's a litmus test, but what is the litmus test?
Sure.
What makes you a Republican?
The principles. Besides the fact that I wear a red tie and a blue Navy suit, right? The Republican Party, in my opinion, at its best, believes in the principles of limited government, of personal responsibility, in a commitment and a belief in the free enterprise system that rewards hard work and private initiative. I believe that there's an important and time-tested moral values become a part of that coalition, and not necessarily religious values, but ones that help strengthen families and communities over time, ones that are time-tested. And then a real commitment to a constitution and adherence to the rule of law, but overall, really a commitment to freedom and opportunity. That's not to say that within every coalition...
If there was a platitude competition going on, you would walk away with it. Tell me what things somebody would have to vote for that you would say, listen, you don't belong in this party.
Sure. Well, we're having that debate play out right now, both in Colorado as well as at the national level in terms of the budgets. Are we going to continue to deficit spend? Are we going to continue to expand government entitlement programs? Or are we going to dial that back? Are we going to...
Real quickly, we win next time?
We will, yes.
Guaranteed?
Yes.
Money back?
Yes.
Ryan Call, thank you for being with us. I appreciate it. Go to, what's the website for the GOP?
www.cologop.org.
Got it. That's cute. All right. And more importantly, go to the Independence Institute and check us out at independenceinstitute.org. Listen for me late nights on 850 KOA. And please, get a friend. Sit around on a Friday night. It's not like you're going to get a date anyway, so we'll see you next week.